guys, the chat's there for you. If you've got any questions along the way, please feel free to do that. I get a lot more from these presentations when you're interacting with me. It's one of the reasons I love live speaking so much, is I can actually see you shaking your heads. But when it's a webinar, I can't see you. So give me a little feedback. I'll ask you some questions. Thank you, Marta. I'm glad to be back. And we're just going to dive right in. So give me a second to pop over to our presentation, and then we'll get going. So really, the 5 rules of growth, what you need to know, and how to grow your business quickly and profitably. Now, when we get these things started, what I really like to encourage you is that when I'm talking, you may hear something that you already know. You may hear something that you're like, wow, that's fabulous. And you may hear yourself say, but that may never work for me. And what I know is that you really, at the beginning of any kind of webinar or coaching program or class or whatever you're investing your time and effort into to help yourself grow in your business, you have to kind of start the venture off with this slide, basically, is that you can have results or you can have excuses, but at no point in time can you ever have both. So I invite you to choose a result. If you can think of, just one little aspect, if you learn something today that I share with you, and I share a lot, that you could put that into your business and have a result, that's what I want to invite you with. Now, the other part of this is when you have an excuse. I love this because when you have an excuse that pops into your brain, I want you to write it down. And the reason that I want you to write it down is because oftentimes the area that we have the most excuses about is our greatest opportunity for growth. And so it's the little resistance to change that our brain is saying, oh, that would never work. She doesn't know what she's talking about. My business is so different. When your brain's saying that, write it down and go back after the webinar and really take a look at it and see if that's truly a truth or if it's a fear. Because oftentimes that's exactly what the excuses are, is fear in disguise. So I want to invite you to have a result, because I think you can get a lot from what we're going to share today. So we're going to talk about the state of being an entrepreneur and why people can struggle in business, and actually how to turn that around. How, instead of being one of the people that is always talking about how hard business is, I would love to have you talk about how easy business is, how successful you feel. That is really why we're in business, isn't it? To be able to say that we're good at this and that we're impacting lives. So we're gonna talk about some of the mistakes and some of the things that you should be doing, and I've woven those all the way through the presentation. And the reason that I bring up the mistakes is because sometimes we feel like we're doing the right things when we're actually maybe doing the right spirit of things, but doing it in the wrong way. And so I want to help you see those in your own business so that you can identify them and then turn them around to be a win. We're going to talk about the 5 rules of growth and how they really work for all businesses, regardless of what kind of business that you're in. And then I'm going to share with you some case studies throughout that will really help highlight why this works and how it works across all the industries. So when we get started, we need to really talk about entrepreneurism and today's age. Oh, Denise says she's hearing 2 conversations. There is a delay. Let me just make sure I don't have 2 things open real quick, because sometimes that can happen. Okay, la la la. Okay, Denise, I'm just showing one window open, so I'm hoping that the delay gets caught up. The recording generally is pretty clear. But when we look at the state of small businesses, and truly by definition with the US government, a small business is a business with under 500 employees. Well, if you looked at that kind of big number there, and there's a lot of businesses out there, 75% of the quote unquote small businesses are actually what you would consider micro or solo businesses. So they are non-employer businesses. And for a lot of the people that I work with, that is where you're at, is that either if you have a staff, maybe you have an admin, but you more than likely work with a lot of outside resources, other businesses, like I do with Amy. Amy being my VA, but she has her own business. I contract with her. So even if I have people working in my business to help me grow my business, I'm not technically considered an employer. Does that make sense? So 75% of all the businesses are out there. One of the stunning things that really motivates me to be doing what I'm doing and to help so many businesses is that the average revenue of the 75% of the small businesses out there is $44,000. And that's revenue. That's top line. That is not money being brought home. And for so many people who left corporate jobs, their corporate jobs were paying more and requiring less from them than their small businesses. If you look at all of this and you kind of top line sum it up, it's basically that 90% of the small businesses out there, those, under 500 employees, but probably mostly in the ballpark of solo to micro businesses, 90% of them are making under 100 grand. And what's startling to me is that I know how easy it is to get into 100 grand. And depending on your business, you should be able to get into 100 grand, into six figures within the first 1 to 2 years of your business. And so there's so much room for growth, which is really wonderful. In my eyes, there's an opportunity for growth. But what I know is so many people are still struggling with how to get that growth. And that was one of the reasons that I've put together, this presentation, because if I can just help you see the path to growth, then you can see your possibility. Because so many businesses, I can see the possibility. I could map it out for you in 30 minutes, but I have to help you be able to see the possibility. And so that's one of the things that we're gonna accomplish with this presentation. So challenges in businesses, what are we up against? And this is a results of a survey that Infusionsoft did. So Infusionsoft is kind of a CRM system similar to Salesforce, if you don't know, but they polled all of their users. Oh, I'm going to have to sneeze here. Now I'll have a second sneeze. I always sneeze in twos. Okay, sorry about that. But they polled all their users and they said, what are the top challenges that you have in your business? And the really interesting thing is that the top challenges can be boiled down to, I either need help with my time or I need help managing my money, getting in more clients, the revenue side of the business. And so that was really interesting to me that, out of these top 7, I believe 5 of them really are generating when talks about business growth. I also talk about time a lot because it goes hand in hand, and you'll see why in a little bit, but it goes hand in hand when you're looking to grow your business. But this is what we know, is that you're not alone if you're having one of these struggles. Is one of the reasons I share this slide. We're kind of all in it together, and it's how we work together to get you past these obstacles. And what's really interesting is no matter what level of growth or what kind of growth phase that you are in your business, these same challenges will keep coming up. It's kind of a normal course of business. The key is, and I'll show you a little bit of this today, is really how do you manage these challenges and how do you react to them when they come? So when you realize that it's not such a emotional or personal reflection of you, that it's actually a standard course of business, you can work the problem, right? Instead of the problem working you. And so that's what I'm going to show you a little bit of how to work the problem today, as much as we can get into it in our short time together. So really what you've got 2 choices here, and I'm going to show you these 2 choices. You can choose to keep operating in a sphere with no money, no time, and really that means no fun, or you can choose a different kind of way to operate your business. Even if you're in a startup phase, even if the money is low, there's still things that you can do to operate in a better space. And part of that has to start with recognizing where you are on the entrepreneurial path and how that mindset of being in each stage really starts to affect your ability to earn revenue and thereby earn income. So when you look at these kind of 4 levels of being an entrepreneur, when you first start your business, usually you've started your business because you're good at something. You feel called to do something. You feel called to be a coach. You feel called to be a photographer and use your talents in those areas. You feel called to be whatever that is. So you start off your business really more as a worker. If you think, okay, the employee, your chief cook and bottle washer, right? You're doing everything, you're wearing all hats. When you're doing that, because your time is your most limited resource, and you are doing all the time work, so to speak, you're really capping where you can grow. So a lot of people get stuck in this area because they haven't been shown how to progress, and they haven't thought about really what's that big end goal in mind. And I will say there's always when I talk money with people, I'm not in it for the money. We have all this conversation. I was doing a blab earlier, and if you don't know what blab is, it's kind of addictive, but it's live streaming, interview style chatting, and we were talking about motivation in business, and the concept of money came up. And you get people that are like, I'm not in it for the money, I'm in it for the passion. And I'm in it for the passion. Let me be straight. I don't necessarily need the income in my personal life, but what it is that I want to have a financial impact in my personal life. And if I don't pay attention to the money part of business, I won't be in business to serve my passion. It's kind of like if you can't take care of everybody else if you haven't taken care of yourself. And we have to get that concept in order to move forward into the employer and the entrepreneur phase. That is a very entrepreneur mindset of, if I don't have a healthy business, I can't help the people that I want to help. Okay, that's the difference between those two mindsets when I look at things. Really, to be able to help you get into 6 figures and multi 6 figures, I have to help you break down those mindset barriers that have you in the worker stage, get you into that employer stage. And in my brain, that employer stage means you might be using subcontractors. You might have a part-time or full-time employee. You're using outside resources and people to help get more work done. When you do that, your ability to earn grows. It just kind of goes hand in hand. So when we talk about business growth, I want you to see where you think you are today. Know that your current status is irrelevant as far as if it's good or if it's bad. It's more important that you just recognize where you are. And then I want you to look at and see where you want to go. Because as we get into these 5 rules, things will start to be clicking for you so that you can see your next step. So you can get that, I invited you to get a result. This is one of the ways that you start, is by seeing where you are and seeing where you want to go. And you do have to go through each little level. I will tell you that. So let's move on. Really what we're going to talk about is more of a success formula. Being in business is simple. It does require effort. It does require discipline. It does require doing the right things at the right time. But in and of itself, when you get those pieces and foundations laid well in your business, then you're really looking at being able to have more profit and more time on your calendar, and thereby more fun. I feel like if we're going to be entrepreneurs together, we deserve a little fun. I don't know if anybody else agrees with that. Now, how do I come to this? How is it that I bring this knowledge to you? And it really, I want you to understand that I have gone through each part of those entrepreneurial paths. When I started my first business, which was an interior design business in Houston, it was I consider it by accident. And the accident was that the designer I was working for wasn't making enough money and basically said, I can't afford to pay you anymore. So as of Friday, you will no longer have a job. So by Monday, I opened up a business, a whole 3 days of planning, let me tell you. And we were fortunate enough that we did take off quite well. That was about mid-year in 2007. By the first quarter in 2008, we were easily into six figures. And I will tell you, I felt a little cocky. I was probably more cocky than I should have been, but I didn't understand why it was so hard for everybody when it was so easy for me. So I felt like maybe I was doing something right. Well, God gives us such wonderful opportunities to learn. And we had the recession. And so the recession taught me one thing. It taught me that you can have a bad business in good times and still make money. That would have been exactly what I had. I had a business that worked mostly because the economy supported it, because people were spending, right? But a recession and a bad business will always lead to failure. A recession and a good business means you're recession proof. And so 2008, by the end of the year, we had gotten into multiple six figures. End of the year, recession hit. We had a hurricane in Houston, which hurt us as well. But in 2009, I lost over half of my business. And for 2 years, I struggled. I'll go back just a second. I really struggled. And I read books, I attended conferences, I paid attention what my quote unquote competition was doing. I tried to put it into work into my business. And for 2 years, it did not work. It did not work. And what I realized is that for 2 years, I was looking for the answers to the wrong questions. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I was sitting at a conference with about 150 other design firms who all seemed successful, wondering why it was that I couldn't make this work. And so I got help. Actually got a coach. I found somebody that was very much in alignment with how I like to do business, how I like to learn, was a straight shooter, which I enjoy as well, and things like that. And really what the amazing part of it is that in 6 months, we turned that business around. And in 6 months, I grew that business 150%. So not only did I grow what I lost, I grew on top of that in 6 months. And we would continue to grow. I think it was about 200% for that following year. Amazing amount of growth. But it taught me a few things. This is actually me here with my coach and Mr. Brad Sugars, accepting an International Business Award for the fastest turnaround company. There were 50 other companies going up for that award. That's how amazing the growth was. So that opened up my opportunity to really what we could do, what growth could look like, how quick it really can be. But what really, and what you'll see the value of what I'm going to share with you, is I got the opportunity to repeat it. So in 2012, my husband and I made the decision to uproot ourselves from Houston to Dallas without any jobs. And basically I was required to move my company, which was a completely word of mouth referral based company, from one city to the next. So if you imagine if you were to uproot your company right now with no contacts, what would you expect your business to do? A lot of times that's the kiss of death, right? You feel like you have to start over. I had a few interesting things happen. Because I had these 5 rules of growth that I'm going to share with you today, because it was such a process that just works for all businesses, I was able to transition my business and still grow it 20% over the previous year. And in that transition, I did lose staff because we had one of our staff got pregnant. One of them, didn't feel comfortable with the remote work type thing. One moved back to Florida, kind of a natural attrition in some cases. But what I was left with was a business that I could operate by myself, Remember, it took me 5 people to operate it before when I was in Houston. Grow it 20% and only work half the time. There's a lot of benefits of when you really get the process down. It takes a little bit of time. You have to go through the iterations for it to become a habit. But when you do that, suddenly you can refine your businesses in ways that you never thought about. Because the old way of doing business isn't going to be the future way of doing business. And it has to be laid on some good foundations. So let's get into the 5 rules of growth. So what they are as a highlight is you're going to release. You need to make room for your growth. You need to understand where the opportunity is in your business. You need to understand how and when to leverage the right resources. So remember, even if you're in a startup phase and maybe cash is the crisis, right? You're in a cash crunch. We won't call it crisis. I always like the word imperative. I have a cash imperative. It's necessary that I bring in cash. Okay. But cash doesn't have to be a limiting factor in a business if you choose to leverage resources in the right way. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about why you need to be a mad scientist in your business and how an iterative approach to building your business is always going to be better than a linear approach to building business. So in short, just because I know sometimes people haven't heard the difference, a linear says that you must do step 1, then you can do step 2, then you can do step 3. Very waterfall. An iterative approach means that you get step 1 done to maybe a 50% completion, get step 2 started while you're finishing step 1 so that you can improve step 3, and then you go back and you improve it again. So it's a little bit more, I look at it as a circle or a spiral that is moving you along. And if you think of like a bicycle tire or riding a bike, it's much quicker, right, than walking. So to me, a linear style is like walking. You have to put one foot in front of the next. And an iterative style is a bit more like riding a bike. You get there faster. So we'll talk a little bit about why that's important in business, especially in small businesses. And then we'll talk about savoring the success and why that actually needs to be a rule. It's really interesting. So when we talk about release, there's this concept that people will come and say, I don't have time, I don't have money to be able to grow. I'm stationary. And the reason why is because there's not a willingness to release something. Now you can release a lot of different things, but let me give you this visual. And I have the Cirque du Soleil flyers here. If you were a trapeze artist and you wanted to move, right? You wanted to grow, you wanted to perform, you wanted to have motion in your business, you have to let go of a bar of your trapeze in order to take hold of the next one. At no point in time can you hold both and have your goal of motion and movement and performance in the trapeze. So if you think about this, what happens so many times and what prevents people from growing and gets them into this plateau state is that they're holding on so tight to the past, to what they used to do, to how they used to do it, to where they're spending their time, where they're investing their money. And they have one hand onto the growth because they want to grow and they're stuck. They're not moving. They've lost momentum. Momentum is one of the hardest things to grow in your business, but the easiest thing to keep in your business. But if you have to understand that for every level of growth that you have in your business, to be able to take that next step up, right? If you imagine like growth is a staircase, to be able to take the next step up, you have to leave the step that you're on. Okay. When we get really comfortable in business is when we don't want to take the next step. Okay. It might feel too big. So every point in time that you're looking at growth in your business, you have to consciously say, what do I need to let go of? Is it a mindset? Is it an employee? Is it a client? Is it how we used to do work? That whole change when we moved from Houston to Dallas, because I wanted so much not to be working 60 to 80 hours, I had to say, what do I need to let go of? What is just the most important things? And focus on that first. That was the release that I had to have. Okay. Everybody goes through this stage. The question is, what is it for you that you need to release in order to be able to grow? Does that make sense to everyone? I hope it does, because it's really one of the most important concepts to being able to get the growth in your business. If we get into understanding where the opportunity lies, and this is really where we're going to spend some time today, I have to get your buy-in that 1% is important. That 1% is huge and impactful. And if you think of it, most of the times, if I were to ask you, do you think that you could grow your business by 1%? Everybody says yes. Easy. It's great. Right now, then, write down for yourself, how much growth do you think you could get in your business in the next 90 days? And I want you to write down that number. I know what the number typically is for people, because when I'm speaking, I'm asking for people to do that. So if you wanted percentage of growth, what percentage of growth do you think is possible for you to have in the next 90 days? I would love to see some people put some up just to hear what you think is possible, and see if you fall into what people really expect for themselves. So go ahead. When you're doing these things, and I'm going to show you why 1% is really huge, but the trap here in business is undervaluing 1%. When we look for growth, we get attracted to the shiny objects, right? We hear somebody had such great success with something, and that's what we go after because we're looking for the big growth. Where I'm going to show you, oh, we went silent again. Double check. Okay, good, G. I'm glad. What I'm going to show you here in our next slide is why 1% is more important than all of the shiny objects out there. Shiny objects are distractions. And a lot of times our shiny objects that we get attracted to in marketing or into other things are very long-term strategies that won't produce a result. Now, I will let you know, for instance, we launched the website early on, but I'm really effective at doing that. And we've been doing a lot of content, webinars and podcasting and blogging for 18 months. Now, it is just now starting to have an impact on our SEO. It's a long-term strategy, but I understood that going in. So I was willing to build that pipeline. So sometimes our shiny objects really kind of get us off track. So we're going to get into why 1% is huge. So when you're looking at understanding your opportunity, there's kind of three subcategories in there. And the first one is knowing your numbers. Above all, every business needs to know their numbers, no matter how busy or how slow you are. And my clients that come in that are in that startup phase, when I can get you into the habit of knowing your numbers early, you have, like, the world is your oyster, because you suddenly can see all the opportunities in such a different light, and you're making better decisions with your money, better decisions with your time, and getting better results as a course of it. But the other thing about knowing your numbers, and why it has to be such a crucial part of your business, is that when you look at what you need to release, when you look at what you need to grow, that's what tells you. Instead of it being an intuition, I think, I feel, you have facts and figures that prove it. And so I like going back to this because it's really one of those key areas that you can develop a decision-making process for your business. Okay, and I'll show you a little bit. The second part of finding the opportunities is really about finding the ways that your clients can say yes. Believe it or not, there is a tendency for entrepreneurs to put up barriers for clients to be able to say yes. And we live in such an age to where if it's hard to buy from you, they'll go somewhere else where it's easy to buy. Okay, so we want to make sure that we've structured our business in order to do that. And then we're going to want to choose the right strategy. And that's something that it's an ongoing process in your business to really learn about what's the best strategy for the result that you're looking for. So we'll talk a little bit about those along the way. Those will kind of be woven in and out. So when it comes to the numbers that you need to know in your business, here they are. But there are two numbers that everybody talks about in their business that are not on this list. Can you guess what they are? Give you the first one, clients. Do you see the clients not one of these numbers? Interesting, huh? And the next one is gross sales or revenue. Those are the two numbers that aren't on this list, and that might seem to be a little counterintuitive. But the reason why they're not on this list is because they're actually the result of numbers, okay? So when you take your leads and multiply it by a conversion percentage, that's how well you translate a lead into a client, that result is clients. Most people come in and say, I need more clients. But what they really don't understand is, do they really? Do they just need to be better in the sales process, which is conversions? Or do they need to improve their marketing, which is leads? Okay, so that's one of the reasons that clients is more like the resulting part of the equation. What you need to pay attention to is the two figures that generate a client. When we look at clients, and I'll talk, this is how it feeds into revenue. When you get your clients, and then you can multiply by the average sale per client, how much on average do people spend with you, and then how often do they purchase from you, that equals revenue. Okay, so that's why those two numbers aren't really something that we quote unquote measure, because we're going to do a little math, really easy math, to get to those numbers as a part of a measurement. Now, the last two numbers that you may have seen up there, the number 6 and 7, were the cost of acquisition and the lifetime value of a client. Now, typically, most people understand lifetime value. I'm going to go through them both so you have an understanding. But cost of acquisition is the cost in marketing, time, and money. Okay, and this is really important, marketing, time, and money, that it takes for you to generate a client. This is a really important number to know in your business. It's how you can measure all of your marketing investments moving forward. It's how you know what to spend. And when this number is so well refined, you know that if you spend X number of dollars, you produce X number of clients. Imagine having that in your business. Imagine knowing that you needed to increase and bring in 5 new clients and saying, okay, I just need to spend $2,500 and I will bring in 5 new clients. Or maybe you just need to spend $500 and you can bring in 5 new clients. That is the magic. That's like the control factor in your business, right? So you can say yes to marketing or say no to marketing based upon that one figure. It's amazing. In my interior design business, that figure was $500. And that might sound like a lot. But when you knew that my average sale was $55,000, how often would you spend that $500? That's the value of that number. The lifetime value of a client, that says over time, because we really hope that our clients stay with us for multiple purchasing cycles. How much do they spend? Okay. Do they bring in referrals? Do they bring in other clients? That ups their lifetime value. Now, what's funny here and why you see it kind of as a ratio is you want to decrease the cost of acquisition to its optimal effectiveness. The goal is not to get it to 0 per se if it doesn't generate clients, but you want that kind of magic sweet spot, okay, that is efficient, effective, the lowest cost that it can be to produce quality clients. And then you want to increase your lifetime value. Now, the mistake people make is they're always looking for new clients. They're spending money getting new clients, new clients, new clients, new clients, new clients. They've gotten so many new clients, they can't even possibly take on any more work. And after they're done with serving that one client, they go to find the new client. They're not worried about maximizing the lifetime value. Okay? People leave money on the table so many times in this one slide. And so that's why I wanted to kind of give you a little more detail about what that's about. So let's look at why 1% is huge. If we looked at these numbers, and I just said a current and then a 1% increase, and I will say when we're talking about people, I just rounded up to 1, which obviously is more than a 1% increase. But you'll see that just a 1% increase in each of these numbers, like one little thing that you could do better in each of these numbers, would give you a 15% increase to your bottom line. I don't know how many people would take that. I'd take it every day of the week. But actually, I think that's really like a no-brainer. It's really quite simple when you put the right strategies impact. I mean, this is do it in your sleep kind of growth. So when you see that kind of change, then you start to see really what the exponential growth possibility can be in your business. Like I said, it does take time to build momentum. Most of my clients, if we're working one-to-one, what they're going to see is it takes about 2 to 3 months to build momentum. And in months 4, 5, and 6 is when they start to see the exponential factor. And the key there is once those results start coming in is to maximize them. That's part of that mad scientist rule that we'll talk about. So let me give you a case study because I think it's always really interesting to see a case study. And this is from a client that came in. She had 6 months in business and she came in saying, Leslie, I need to be in 6 figures in 6 months. I need to be there. How do I get there? And so we're like, okay, well, I asked her, what is it that you think you need to do to get there? Because it's always really interesting to see how we've quote unquote, solved our own problems, right? Well, she said, I just need more clients. And that's pretty understandable, right? How many people right now say, I need more clients? So when we looked at her numbers, and I do this with all new clients that come in, it's basically a 7-figure calculator that I ask for 5 numbers, and we generate your 7 numbers that you need to know in your business, the 7 figures that are important to it, and we look what the numbers tell us. So what she had said was, I need more clients. Right? Well, she had 22 leads and she was converting those clients at a whopping 73%. That's like sales rock star level. Okay. If you're at 100%, I'm just going to tell you right now, triple your price, honestly, because you should be optimally in the 50 range for a lot of businesses. If you're a high value business, meaning that you're charging based on value, not based on time for money, then your conversion rate actually is a lot lower. It's like 20 to 30%. Okay, so this is a really key number to know and to know where your optimal range is, because if you are getting so many no's in your business and you're getting discouraged by that, you're going to feel very deflated. Your confidence is going to be a little less than best. Your inner champion is going to be wondering what's going on. But if you really understand, and this is why you're knowing your numbers is so key, and knowing about where you need to be for what stage in business you are, then you can say, I'm on target. It's okay for me to have a 20% conversion rate. Okay, I will let you know my personal conversion rate is in that range. That's my expectation. When I do better than that, it's a party. But if I'm performing at that rate, I know I'm still doing a good job. But anyway, so she was producing 16 clients, but this is where she thought the problem was. Here's where the problem actually is. Because remember I said that people do not track number 6 and number 7, lifetime value and cost of client acquisition. So she was doing a great job of bringing in clients, but she was spending $1,250 in marketing time and money Because if you are spending time networking or speaking, you're not doing anything else in your business, right? That time costs you an ability to bring in income. Okay, so that's why it's important to factor those. But I even think for her, we just stuck to the money part of it. Okay, so for her, from a money point in time, she was spending $1,250 per client to bring them into the business. But because she was so awesome at what she did, she was fixing their problem in one sale. She was a coach. She was a relationship coach. She actually, being a family relationship coach, helped people avoid divorce. So people that were like, our next resort is divorce, would be coming to her for help. And she, in 3 months, could turn around their relationship at such an astronomical success rate that they would avoid divorce. Now, if you've ever been through divorce, if you've ever known anyone that's been through divorce, if you've ever helped somebody get a divorce, you understand how expensive even the cheapest divorces are. And that's just in monetary. It's easy to do 10, 15,000, right? Just in monetary. We're not talking about the stress. We're not talking about the emotional. We're not talking about the impact on the kids. We're just talking the dollars and cents. So she is helping people rewrite their love stories, their lives together in such a way, and helping them avoid so many other things for $1,400, $1,420. But do you see those two numbers? Do you see how close they are together? That was the problem in the business. She wanted to bring in more clients. This is what happens in so many businesses, is that they haven't priced their business for profit to begin with. Okay, we just priced it based upon what our friends price, what everybody else is saying they charge, and hoping that it makes sense. What we don't know is, are those other people profitable? Is that really the marker that we should be building our business on? Now, there's ways to figure that out, and I can't go through that today, but you can see here where the disconnect is. This is why, especially in startup businesses, why it feels like you're losing money all the time. Because in essence, she was losing money with every sale, because that cost of client acquisition doesn't even include overhead expenses, telephones, salary. You guys know, even the leanest businesses have overhead. Okay, so what we needed to do and what we put together as part of this calculator study, and the fun thing about the calculator is, and I don't show it here, but it actually says, okay, if you had 10% growth, 20% growth, yada, yada, what would that look like? So we can go through and choose our specialized prescription, what we're going to do to build a six-figure plan. You can do this for multiple six figures. You can do it for trying to get in from the 250 range to $500,000 range. It works at every level of the business. I'm just showing you an into six-figure model here. But look at what we did. So we're basically saying over the next 6 months, we do need to increase some leads, but it's like 2 additional leads a month over what her business is currently performing. Is that doable? It's very doable. Then we're looking at the fact, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to skip number 2, but you notice it's a decrease, and I'm going to come back to tell you why we forecasted a decrease. But essentially what we're looking at is to maintain her current business performance and increase it by 4 clients. Is that doable? To maintain what you're doing and bring in 4 additional clients. Now, because the value of what she was doing was so high for her clients, the one thing she needed to do was increase her price. That was a no-brainer. It's also, this one little area is so entertaining to me, is the biggest resistance that people have in their business. But maybe you don't have the ability to impact that. I've got some clients that do mortgages, some travel agent clients, they're paid on commission. So they can't impact that number. And I get that. That might be your case too. Other ways to go around it. But in this case, she was able to impact her numbers. And what I will tell you is that the only hindrance to price is between your ears. The only person that truly believes that you can't raise your pricing is you. The excuse we say is that nobody will buy. Everybody says no. Well, here's the interesting thing. When you increase your price, you have to expect a decrease in conversion. That's why we dropped her down. I mean, she's a sales rock star and a half, but we said that her conversion was going to drop to 60%, okay, because she's got to become confident in presenting and selling that price. So that explains the drop. But because of such the value that she was, we're like, you know what? You're probably over delivering in one package. How could we still deliver outstanding value, but also encourage your clients to say yes again? When you're in the business phase of really what I'm going to say is like your 3 to 5 year mark, you've got clients, you've had good momentum. This is the area we go to first. It's your low hanging fruit. But imagine what happens if you started your business with the low hanging fruit in mind. Tremendous amount of growth. Tremendous amount of growth that you could have in your business. So you can see just the impact there of getting her into the low 6 figures changes her lifetime value of a client and her net profit. Suddenly she's profitable just with a few tweaks. So that number that you wrote down for yourself, what you think is possible for you to grow, I'm curious, would you now say that it should be higher? Her percentage of growth that we were mapping out for her was 439%. Would you take that? I surely would. Now, I'll say, if you are in the early stages of your business, it's a lot easier to get those big numbers, okay? But when you're in, like, if you're already in 6 figures, would you really decline 150% growth? Remember my story, we were in early 6 figures after we lost the business, brought it back 200%. It's still possible to have those exponential numbers. I don't want you to kind of say, oh, but that wouldn't work, because the answer is it would. It's anytime I hear it wouldn't work, you got to change that and say, how can I make this work? How can I do this? Because that's where the answer and the opportunity lies. So I tell you what, guys, you should have received this as part of the webinar, but now you understand the value of it and what you can see with it. And so I love walking people through this because it's like the possibilities are boundless and it gets really exciting. So when we talk about really finding the opportunities for a client to say yes, there's so many ways that you can build that into your business. You know, when I take people through the Easy 6 Figure Business Club, module 4 is on sales. And the first thing we start to do is map out what this yes map looks like in your business. Because when you've got a consciousness around how you can guide a client through it, you become so much more effective in doing so. A lot of business is just about being conscious about what's happening in your business. You know, those 7 figures, when you track them, do you realize that you could just about get 10% growth just by tracking the numbers and paying attention to them? Because suddenly you've told your subconscious that it's important. And so your subconscious works at making sure that the numbers go up. So when you do the same thing, you can see there's so many ways that we can have a client say yes to ourselves. A lot of people stop at the first one, enrollment, bringing a client on board. When the really truth, there's 5 more opportunities there for you to be able to have a client say yes to you. So you've got to build these into your business. You have to know, if you've got service levels, and that just means being able to have a client say yes at multiple price points, solving the next problem. In our case study, basically that's what she needed to do, is be able to solve the next problem for her clients, which was long-term maintenance, right? We fixed the problem. Now let's make sure you have lasting results. But so much opportunity comes in here, and a lot of these things from 2 to 6 affect your average sale, and they affect the number of times of purchasing. That's how you double a business without new clients. That's exciting to me. I love doing it. It's fun. So growth strategies, really and truly, I have to stop here and I have to let you know that there are a ton of growth strategies. And guess what? They all work. They all work when it's the right growth strategy for your strengths, your business, and your clients. So many times we try to take the Band-Aid approach and just stick these Band-Aids on the problem without being conscious of, is this the right strategy for the clients that I'm trying to reach, my ideal market, my niche? Is it a strength that I have? You can have Facebook ads. Let's just use that, I guess, because we're looking at them, but let's just use that. It might take me 9 months to become a Facebook ad expert, right? And so that's what a lot of people try to do, is they try to become the expert in one of these growth strategies. Well, that's even if it's a short-term strategy, you've now made it a long-term because you have so much education. If it was just about learning, right, we would all be billionaires. It's not just about learning, it's about learning to do it effectively. And there's ways you can shortcut that, and I'll show you that in a minute. But really and truly, you do not need that many strategies. Max, a sophisticated business and marketer, one that's got all the foundation pieces laid, can do 10 easily and well. And when we're doing that, we really try to go deep. And this is the crucial. To really get good growth in your business, you just need to start off with 3. And I want you to do those 3 so astronomically well that you start to see the results, and that you can 10 times and maximize the results. Because the key to choosing the right strategy is only that you need a few diamonds, right? But instead of doing so many of them, which would be like going a mile wide, when you're doing so many of them and you're not practiced at it, you can only do them so well. So you're only like an inch deep, even though you're a mile wide, and you don't get effectiveness. When you're choosing these strategies, you have to choose the strategies that authentically work with you. Choose a few, so you're only going an inch wide now, but then go a mile deep on them. That's when you get leverage. That's when you get volume. That's when you get momentum. That's when you get effectiveness. But we get so distracted in trying to do so much that half the time we don't finish what we're in, because marketing takes time. It takes repetition. Somebody needs to hear your message 7 times. They need to be able to know, like, and trust you. That is a bit of a process. That's why I say, when we're looking at growth strategies and you're in that startup phase, that's why you need 3 months to be able to get momentum in there. And because you're so focused and disciplined, because you're not trying to do it all, you actually get better results. It's a little counterintuitive to how people go about setting up their marketing and setting up their growth plans, but that's the truth of it matter. You cannot be all things to all people. You cannot do all things at all times. You must choose to do the most highly impactful things first, and do them with such an expertise that there's no denying. So this is always fun when I get people and get clients in and we're looking at marketing strategies. We've actually had a couple of clients where we're just doing like a what I call a quick burst, spending 2 to 3 hours together. All I am helping with is the marketing strategy. And when you take the marketing strategy and you trace it back to your leads, that's the power. That's how you know whether or not you need to be doing more marketing or less marketing. It's really crazy when you can tie all these things together. So I love doing that. So when we talk about the leverage points in your business, it's really about understanding that there's four basic ones: people, money, technology, and systems. Now, time isn't on here because technology, systems, and people are all about leveraging your time, if you understand that. But there are ways to do it that are congruent to the phase of business that you're in. Okay, so I'm just going to focus today on money because that's always people's sticking point, if you will, why they aren't able to move forward with something. So when you're looking at money, the old way of business says, I have to build it for them to buy it. The new way of business, that iterative approach, has you having people to buy it. This is number 2, getting paid upfront to build something of value. Now, the great part of this, what I love, is that your clients at this stage become co-creators. And it takes all of the, well, I think they would like X out of the equation. Another way that this is being done, Kickstarter campaigns. A t-shirt, a promise of a t-shirt is generating funds for people. There are so many people out there looking to become a part of something bigger, that they are willing to donate to you or your cause, your mission, in order for a promise of something. Now, I have to say at this point in time, if you do not do good follow through, if you are a great quick start person, but horrible at implementation, this is not the strategy for you. Okay, I want to make that clear. This is for the people that can deliver on their promises time and time again. But do you see, it puts the front end of the money forward. It puts the money forward. And a lot of times in business, we have this idea that the money comes after. No, the money comes forward. Think about Amazon. You buy a pair of shoes off of Zappos. Aren't you paying for those shoes before they ever reach you? There's a shift that's happened in our marketplace. Are you following the shift? And the reason why this is important, because consumers are already predisposed to expect it. Yet so many times I'm seeing people put the cash at the end. The best thing you could do at your business is put cash forward. Is have a negative, what's considered a negative cash cycle. You get money before you deliver on a product. That's huge. It can be done at any level, and I'm telling you it can. Even did it in design. I mean, when we're talking about $50,000 and $60,000, it was paid in full before we delivered the final product. That's how we kept our business healthy. We always delivered. That's the key. But that's a really key aspect. So when you look at this one, and I've talked about number 3 a lot of times, such the Facebook ads, you could spend 9 months becoming the expert, or you could go to an expert or go to a coach to teach you to become an expert in half the time. Therefore, you see the result quicker. Everyone on this call has the ability to grow their business. It's just how long is it going to take you, and how much money and time and effort are you going to have to spend before you see the result? And so at times it makes really good sense. I have just invested in standing on the shoulders of giants because I see a problem in my business. The problem is at a conversion point that's not working as well as it should be. What I know, because of coaching and helping so many people, is that's a messaging problem. So I've gone to somebody that is an expert at messaging, because obviously I've worked at it, right? I've tried to work the problem myself, but it's more important to me to get the result than to work the problem. Okay, that's that kind of entrepreneur level of mindset there. So there's a lot of ways to do this, but let's say, Leslie, that's great, whatever. I'm not going to do 2, I'm not going to do 3. Then 1 is a great opportunity. See, there's so many ways to skin a cat. Yeah, I know that's a horrible phrase, but I'm from Texas, and my grandmother was full of phrases like that. But there's so many ways to do this that you just have to find where your opportunity is. So the sweat equity partnerships, if you don't have money but you have time, man almighty, this can be a gold mine. This could get you business in 60 days, 30 days with the right partner. Somebody that has money but no time. Somebody that is complementary but not competitive. You both serve the same client. Those can be absolute gold mines and start to pay the way for future growth. So there's a lot of ways to do this. It's just about leveraging. And we get so down one path that we think that there's no other opportunity. If I left you with nothing more, that anytime you say that I can't do this, and you could shift that statement and say, how can I? And start to open up yourself to the possibilities. That's really where true growth can start. That's where the great ideas are. And when they're simple, man, they're worth $1 million. The more simple, the better. Honestly, the more simple, the better. So we talked about being a mad scientist in business, and I kind of formalize it for my people that go, what? You want me to what? And that business is really nothing more than a series of experimenting, evaluating, and executing. You're working the problem, the little mechanics in your business, but you have to see what works, because our preconceived notions, just like I was just talking about, aren't always on target. We're not always, we don't necessarily come into business as a business expert. That's one of the values of having a coach is that you can kind of shortcut some of that. You can kind of say, this is really not a concern for right now. You can start laying that foundation, but really and truly, that's a long-term project. Okay, so what happens is most people see other people's success as that straight arrow, that green top line, you know, shoom, rocket to success. I think Brian Tracy said that most people view success as an overnight operation. They were an overnight success. They just failed to see the 10 years of struggling and obstacles behind it, because that's really what the truth of success is like in your business. And the middle line represents that, the pink line of you'll get that initial phase that seems really slow, then suddenly you have this uptick, then suddenly you have a valley. Now, entrepreneurism does have hills and valleys. Our goal is not so much to avoid them. Our goal is to decrease the time that we're there. Okay, so that we can keep moving along the success line. And so that first big chunk is always a kind of a earth-shattering chunk, and it's where we meet our obstacles, it's where we see regressions, it's where we have to learn to let go of some things, and the longer we hold on it, the longer we're going to be in this obstacle and regression phase. But a lot of times, you know, it's not uncommon to have the concept of what brought you here won't get you there. Okay, and that's a book that I actually have on my shelf to read shortly. But you know what we want to get you up is into that persistence level. That persistence level tends to happen between years 3 and 5. It's that plateau. It's the level of comfort, you know, of just I just want things to be normal for a while. I just want some stability. Okay, well, that's where you start minimizing your profits too, because you're not growing along with it. You should have growth every year of your business. You should be looking for opportunities for growth. And I'm not just talking about $1,000 over last year. I'm talking about significant growth, at least 10% in your business, if not 20, 30, 50, 150, wherever you want to be, because you want to get up on that next upward cycle. And you'll see you still have abilities of learning as part of business. And business is a learning process. You know, that's why so many people that reach the million and $1 billion will tell you they had 2 and 3 failed companies because they had to learn across the way. You know, one of my goals is to get people out of this obstacle and regressions phase back up onto a growth cycle in their business. So you have to be a little bit of a mad scientist. And if you adopt that attitude, then you see these obstacles and regressions as something a little different. They're not so much a personal reflection of your skill set. They're an opportunity to improve. And that mindset shift is huge. And I've given you so many little mindset shifts here, but a worker in that worker level of entrepreneurism will fall out here. They'll quit. Do you realize right now we have more businesses leaving the economy than we do have new businesses forming? It's one of the first times we've actually had that cycle go off. So interesting here, and that's why we want to move ourselves along the cycle. That's why you need somebody who can see the forest for the trees. You know, when you're deep in the forest, sometimes you feel lost. You know, you're determined, you're ready to move forward, you know you can, you just don't know where to go. So that's, you know, this level is really understanding the growth cycle, understanding success cycles, understanding for where you are, how you fit, so that you can be very objective in being able to move forward and trying something new and trying a better way and improving and being that iterative approach that I talked about earlier. Now, savoring the success. I always think this is interesting. It seems like so simple, right? It seems like, oh, we should get that, right? We should be able to celebrate our successes. Take a little sip here. But here's what what I understand is, as entrepreneurs, we tend to be very visionary. We tend to be, on this path together. We're all like this. We focus on the future. It's going to be better tomorrow. There's almost no level of industry that's more optimistic than entrepreneurism. And so when you're so focused in the forward motion, and I don't know if you've done strength finders, but like mine are strategy, mine's forward thinking, actualization, achievement. I mean, it's all very forward accomplishment type skills. That means that I'm not always present in the beauty of today, in the success for today. Now, if you're on this call and you are your, number one salesman, have you ever given yourself the Salesman of the Month award? I mean, why not? You're bringing in the most business. There are ways to celebrate those little successes. And why it's such a key, why it's one of the rules of growth, is because when you never see the distance that you've traveled, you never feel like you'll get to where you want to go. And so no matter how small, we have to build in the moments of celebrating. Even if you are in your house or in your home office or in an office, wherever you are, and you need to do a dance party to celebrate something good, then you do. Now, what's fun about this is that when you can celebrate your successes, you're also you give yourself a sense of accomplishment for the day. I have some days to where, like, by 1 o'clock, it's been such a great day. I try to get a little bit more momentum in there, but I'm like, I'm done for the day. I've been successful for the day. I'm letting myself off early. That's how I celebrate. I like the freedom to be able to do that. But how would you celebrate in your business? And you have to celebrate even the tiniest, tiniest, tiniest accomplishments if you want to train your brain, so to speak, to do this over and over again. What was the improvement? If you think of an athlete, even if they didn't win the race, their coach is sitting there going, yeah, but you shaved 5 seconds off your time. Do you realize that? If we did it, then the next 5 seconds, you'd be the winner. Isn't that motivating to know that versus feeling like, I'm not getting anywhere. I don't, yeah, I got a client, but I need 10. It's a difference in focusing. So savoring the success is really important as part of this growth process. And you do have to be conscious about it and build it in. So those are the 5 rules of growth. Like I mentioned, if you've seen me speaking, you got a lot more here than I'm able to give in 20 or 30 minutes with at my speaking engagements. But it's all really, the what you need to be doing in your business to ensure that you have growth. So I want to take the time just to invite you to do something after this webinar. My passion is that you do have value from everything that I give. So if you've had that key step in your brain that said, man, this is what I need to do, this is the result that I'm after, take the next step for it. Okay. I want to encourage you to do that, because success isn't about leaps and bounds. Success is about putting one foot in front of the other. That's how you get there quicker. If you've ever seen, I don't know if y'all watch American Ninja, but I think about that a lot. It's about moving one step further and keep trying. But I want to invite you to do something different. And I love this quote because we get so comfortable in how things are, even if we're discontent with the result that we're getting. Okay, so this was a quote that when this hit home, my first business, in my dark days, as it were, it just really helped me understand, it's from Albert Einstein, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. If you're not getting the results, then you need to change what you're doing. This is a little bit of the mad scientist. And even when I think of mad scientists, I kind of have Albert Einstein in my brain about really finding something that works better, or finding some way to improve the results so that I'm maximizing and leveraging in my business. So one of those ways that you can do that is you need to understand that really about being successful in business isn't truly about your clients. It isn't about your competition. It is about you. And throughout this webinar, we've been working on that. Okay, that's why you're here. That's what we've been working on together, is really improving you so that you can improve all the other parts. There's this formula that's like be times do equals have. And you understand that who you are and who you need to be is just as impactful as what you do. They have, same weight. So sometimes if you're doing and not getting your results, we have to look at who you are and who you need to be in order to get the results that you want to have. It is one of those kind of sneaky little elements of growth. So ask yourself, what is it that your inner champion needs? I don't know of a single business owner that says, I want to fail. That's okay. I don't want to increase. I don't want to serve more people. I don't want to increase my revenue. I've yet to meet a single business owner that says that. So you have an inner champion that believes in you. And if you think about it, even the best athletes have somebody that believes in them, that helps coach them through that success cycle, helps them get past their obstacles and their regressions. So is that something that your inner champion needs? Is that something that you need to have behind you, somebody that's supporting you, somebody that's partnering with you? And what's fun about that is that you really start to see what when you invest in the shoulders of giants, people that have already been there. Here's the two difference. You've got the kind of maze on the right here where the guy's like, oh my gosh, which way do I go? And it's really easy to stay in that stage. That's kind of status quo, right? And getting just really getting immobilized because either you want too much perfection or you don't feel confident in knowing what your next step would be. Well, the difference is when you do have somebody that can guide you through, it's like suddenly being able to see the maze, suddenly being able to map out the quickest way to your results. I mean, that's really what a lot of growth is about, is changing yourself from here to here with the help of a coach, with the help of an expert, with the help of somebody that can help guide you there. Because once you have the map, what I know, goodness gracious, the 10, 15 conversations I've had this month is that people are great doers. We just need the map to get us there. So what would happen if you had a map? Where would you be able to take your business if you could know where the end point is? So if you look at this, I love this because I see the potential in you. I mean, right now, you have potential. Everybody has such an amazing amount of potential. It's just, what are you going to do with it? And sometimes I have to help you realize what that potential could be. So if you grew your business 10%, what would that mean? And if you grew your business 10% 4 times a year, what would that mean? Right? It's that value of the little percentages that add and compound over time. But you have to know, what is your potential? Where can you take your business? Do you see the potential in your business? We spent a lot of time in understanding where the opportunities are. And I can tell you, unless you have gone through this process time again, and unless you know the strategies that really impact where you need to be and what number to work on first and all of that stuff, it can be hard to see the potential. But I hope with the case study, you started to see what that could look like, because it's magnificent. And even if you didn't get the 400%, if you fell short and got 200%, would that be the worst thing in the world? I think Les Brown says that you shoot for the moon, and even if you land upon the stars, you're still in pretty good company. That's a fabulous feeling to be there. So what is the potential? I love seeing the potential in businesses, because I will say, I have met some businesses that I say have very little potential, that has a lot more to do with the mindset of the owner than it does with anything else. And so that's why mindset, you have to believe that there's potential in order for, things like this to really take hold and work with you. So I want you to give yourself the opportunity to say yes. I invited you to look for a result as part of attending this webinar. So are you looking for more profit in your bank? I surely hope that you are. Otherwise, you've got a hobby and not a business. And this is like, profit in the bank means you've paid yourself first. Just as a side note, you're actually getting paid well in your business. So many people have this idea of being able to sell a business. Well, without a profit and paying people as part of that with profit, nobody will buy a business because it's not a business, it's a hobby. Okay. So would you imagine saying yes to more profit? What could you do differently if we think about Einstein? What could you do differently? Here's Michelle. Michelle's one of my clients, and we've been working together for about 18 months. And she started off with no business. I mean, just really sat on a business idea for 3 years. Okay. 3 years, that's a long time to sit on an idea. In the first 3 months, we had our first 5-figure client. I mean, all that stuff that kind of kept her stuck in the maze, what logo, what website, I need a website, I need this, I need that, I need this, that was paralyzing her from making a choice in her business. Once you get all that stuff away, the growth happens. It's just about putting the one step forward. And like she shares, it's just about helping her see through the maze. That's what somebody standing outside looking in can do for you. So are you saying yes to more time? This concept that in order to be a great and successful entrepreneur that you have to work yourself to death. And that's so far from the truth. I want to tell you about Patty, and you can read what Patty said, but I will let you know that Patty is no longer a client. And that is one of the greatest successes that we can have. And you know why Patty is no longer a client? Because she fixed her business, we got her profitable, and then structured it in such a way that she can take off the summer from her business to spend it being a grandma, to go visit her daughter in Oklahoma, to take her other daughter to camps. And she can do that knowing that she has business in September and in the fall. She now knows how to structure her business to bring in the profit that she wants so that she can balance it with the time, with the freedom that she was really looking for when she opened up her business. Okay, so if you need to say yes to more time, there's ways to have the money work together with that so that you can choose how and when you spend your time. I mean, it's amazing to go from a business that's broken, that you feel like you have to work so hard in to get the success because you're driven to have it, to see the ease and calm of a business where you understand it. And therefore, you can make it work for you harder than you work for it. That's the goal in my book. The end goal is about having fun. And I love this photo. It's hilarious to me. I think I probably had a hippity hop ball, bounce ball, whatever, when I was little. But really, it's finding the opportunities to have a little fun in your business. You need that savoring the success. You need the emotional payoff to all the effort that you're doing. For me, my fun is actually getting to travel. I love to travel. And so right now I'm planning almost a week-long vacation in Puerto Vallarta with my entire family of 5. My mother lives with us, so including her, to go and be able to do that and have a great time doing it. That's my fun, but what's your fun? What could having more time do for you? What could having more profit in your bank do for you? Who else could you impact, and would that be fun? I mean, business coaching is my playground. I've never had such a more thrilling position in my life. I love this business. Because I love the business, because I have so much fun in it, man, can we do some great work. That's the payoff of the fun. So I would invite you that if what I've spoken today really resonates with you, if you see the possibility, if your inner champion is saying, yes, just help take me there, then I would love to talk with you. And one of the ways that you can do this is to we have a little application process. And let me tell you why there's an application process. Because that tells me that you're serious about moving forward. But the other part of it, because I don't want to waste your time and I want our time together to be so valuable, that's one of my missions. That's one of the values of my business, is that we are providing outstanding value to our clients. That there's some information. If you were just to share that with me, then our time together could be so much more impactful. I don't have to ask you 10 questions. I can get to the heart of the matter when we're talking with each other. And so that's why I have the application. It is to help me understand people who are really serious about this, who want to be able to move forward, who are tired of doing the same thing over and over and not getting any results. So it's a short application. You probably can finish it in 15 minutes. Once you do that, you'll get the invitation to schedule some time and we'll chat. So what are we going to chat about? And I just kind of covered this, but basically we are looking for people that are prepared to grow, that want to do that understand that they might have to put some time and effort into it. And that's okay, because you're only going to be spending it doing the right things. That's really crucial in business. And I tell people it's not so much about working harder, it's about working smarter. And that's what I want to show you and help you learn how to do in your own business. But really, what could be the outcome? How could I help you if we were going to work together? There's a lot of ways. I have built in a lot of flexibility into the business because I like enabling you to be able to say yes to yourself. That's fun to me. So it's everything from, if you need a quick burst of strategy, you're up against the wall and you just don't know which way to turn, and man, if I could just talk to somebody, I could go do. Because I'm talking to a lot of people that can do. The do's not the hard part, it's knowing what to do. We can have just a couple of hours with that. If you need a little bit more and you want to get a plan together, either a marketing plan or a growth strategy plan, which really includes more than just marketing, but you really want something that you can execute over the next 3 to 6 months, then we've got that as an option for you. And then if you need more, like you need the accountability, you need the partnership, you need somebody to be there with you, then I can help you at that level. So there's a lot of different ways that I can help you in your business, that I can help you help yourself in your business. But don't necessarily think that it has to be a one size fits all, because that's not what my business is about. And if you think about that, finding opportunities to say yes, that service level aspect, I'm demonstrating that for you right here, right now, in a way that works well for the business and provides value for you. So the way that I look at how I partner with people is that it is a partnership. It's not me assigning homework. That has no value. I like to show you how to fish. I like to teach you how to fish, and then I want to help you do it yourself. That's a natural progression. I think if I just told you what to do, that's frustrating, right? But really it's about building a partnership. So we can do that at so many levels. But all you have to do is go ahead and sign, fill out the application, book a time to talk, and then we'll get on to on and have a conversation with each other. I have to let you know that these are not high pressure sales. I am not into that. I do not enjoy it when I'm put into that situation. And I know there's so much of that going on right now in our marketplace, in my industry, but this truly is a conversation. You never get a push from me. You get an invitation if it fits. And if that invitation is right for you, I can help you to say yes. But at no point in time do I ever want anyone that's on the phone to end it feeling bad about themselves, because that's so counter to everything that I teach you, right? And everything that I've just shared with you. So that's kind of my promise. I want to kind of put it in there. So if that's for you, then take a moment, go to yourbizrules.com/app and just fill out an application for chatting. I will tell you, everyone that comes on really leaves that conversation, even if I can't help or it's not the right time, having value from those conversations, so that I know it's time well spent. So I just kind of put the link into the chat box if you want to copy it and paste it, but that's how we'll go, and we'll just talk from there. What I'll leave you with, and not too bad, we're just a couple minutes over for all of our delay up front, is basically, you don't have to be great to start. You don't have to know everything to be successful in your business. You really don't. But you have to start in order to be great. You have to take a next step, and you have to take the best next step for you. And then guess what? When that step's done, you just have to take another step. So if you feel like you're trying to climb a mountain, oh no, I love this analogy. I'm full of little analogies, but have you ever heard, what's the best way to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So that's what I hope I've shared with you. I hope I've helped you take that one next step forward to really securing growth in your business. I'd love to hear from you. I know we've got to kind of wrap it down. I'm afraid I have to wrap it down too. I have a speaking engagement to head off to, so don't have a whole lot of time for extra questions here. But always, you can send us an email, ask any questions. It's really easy to get in contact with us. But I monitored this email address that I'm about to put into your little thing. It's where we send out all the newsletters and any communication. So at any point in time, you can hit reply and it comes to me. And I do check it daily because I want to be able to be responsive to you and make sure that we're addressing your needs. That's what we're here. We're here to serve. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for hanging in with us as we made it through our technology challenges at the beginning. There is another airing if you want to hear this again. So, really get in there and make sure that this is working for you and make sure that you're taking the time to do something that drives your business forward. All right, guys, love you lots. Have a beautiful week, and we will talk with you soon.